Morning, we are Mem Zion Amud Beis 47b. We're about a quarter from the bottom of the page, maybe a little bit more than a quarter. The line begins with the words Halach Rabu Ha'imrim, and the last word on that line is Misha Rabu. If you find a little 8 under the 8, you'll see Misha Rabu. Yeah. Okay, so the Gemoro is in the middle of bringing with us about the slippery slopes of when certain character traits or certain behaviors start to proliferate and become the norm. Then it leads to personal breakdown, societal breakdown, breakdown of morals, and so on. So says the Gemara like this. It's an interesting phrasing, and we'll open the floor to see what this might mean. Misharabu Moishche Haroik. From the time or when it proliferates, those who extend their spittle. I'm going to see how Steinsaltz translates it directly. Yeah. 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 Let's see. Let's see exactly how he translates it. Yeah. Drawing spittle. That's how he translates it. So Rashi just says, Rashi just writes, they draw out their spittle, and that is a sign of arrogance. Which is funny because here's what the Gemara says: from when those who draw or like expand their spittle, that became proliferated. Rabu Hayir, the arrogant ones, start to proliferate. In other words, this leads to arrogance. How? Anyone? Any suggestions?
What does it mean? Spittle?
I don't know. You tell me.
Proliferates?
No. Proliferates those who lengthen their spittle. Like they draw it out, they extend it more than necessary.
Maybe excessive talking.
Excessive talking. Interesting.
Frivolous speech. I don't know. The spittle comes from
speech. Yeah, I thought it was like overly enjoy food.
Because when
they're very
it activates the
saliva,
anything.
Right, but specifically here it says Moshe Haroik is there the people who expand, and somehow this drawing out the spittle, making it like extend or something, is like a sign of arrogance. It's like a chewing gum too much, that kind of thing, and that leads to too much arrogance. It seems like people are too into themselves, and that leads to arrogance. Much more to go on. If you have any ideas, you're welcome to. Anyway, but here's the Gemara's next stage. So there's 4 stages here. People extending spittle, Moshe Haroik, draw out their spittle, and then that causes arrogant ones to proliferate, and then that leads into Smatu al Talmidim, and now it becomes less students, meaning less students, because less people are seeking out wisdom, because they're all arrogant and self-assured. And therefore, Torah seeks out those who will study it, as opposed to usually students seek out Torah to learn from it. So that's what it seems like. It seems like self-indulgence leads to arrogance, which leads to not looking to learn, and therefore Torah is left trying to find someone to learn from him, rather than those humility to seek out Torah and its knowledge. That's what it would seem like. That's what it seems like. Anyway, I'm a little bit stuck on this Moshe Haroik as a description. Now, all Rashi says is Marichin Haroik. They lengthen their spittle. Midas gaivu. This is a attribute of arrogance. How? Why? No explanation. Stanzas doesn't offer much else either. When those who show their arrogance by drawing out spittle proliferated, the number of haughty people in general proliferated. So maybe it's, yeah. Let's see, I'm looking here, Ben Yayada.
Maybe like he said, they're talking a lot. So let's say leaders talk a lot. So when those start to do that, then everybody does it.
Yeah, so it could be what something like when you start showing, like people are arrogant is one thing, but then you start showing it publicly. And that's what this extending spittle means. Like you're demonstrating your arrogance publicly, so it becomes like accepted to be
Like
self-indulgent.
You don't mean what you say. Say things.
You're saying it's on speech.
To flattery or to curry favor. You're not being truthful in your speech.
Okay. In other words, you're saying that the spittle is not so much a food thing, but a speech thing.
Food, because I don't think food leads to arrogance. It leads to other.
Sorry?
I don't think food leads overindulgence, and food leads to arrogance. It leads more towards maybe lustful.
Right. Yeah, good point. But the talking a lot does lead to arrogance.
Yes.
That's a good point.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I like that. That's interesting.
Non-truthful speech, just to appease someone, to befriend.
Talk for the sake of talking. Talk for
a purpose. Talk for
the
sake of getting something that you want, but you don't need.
Also, talking for the sake of getting people's attention.
Yeah, it could be that too.
Interesting. Okay. It actually makes sense because
favors, crying for bribery. Yeah, I can do this thing for you. I'll get you this. I'll get you. But he doesn't really mean it. He just wants the favor.
And just to back up what you're saying, the custom is that we spit out our saliva at Aleinu when we say Shehem Mishtachim Lev Larik. Right? We thank God that God separated us from the nations of the world to know you, and for they bow down to Hevel Larik. People translate the word Rik as spit. It's not. Hevel Larik means vanity and nothingness and emptiness. So they bow down to vanity and emptiness, but we serve Hashem. That's the Aleinu, right? So when we say, and they bow down to Hevel Larik, to vanity and nothingness, we spit out our saliva. And the reason is because when you talk, you produce saliva. And we don't want to derive any pleasure from having even mentioned their vanity and nothingness. So even the little bit of pleasure we get out of talking, which is the saliva produces, we spit it out. So maybe that's what we're talking about here. They enjoy producing lots of saliva by talking a lot.
Right.
Because it makes them seem important. And then all of a sudden, everybody's Rabbi, you are him. Actually, it makes sense. Because the end is that they're people not looking to learn Torah because they know it all. Because they're talking. Everybody wants to be a talker.
Right.
Everybody wants to be.
That's a very high form of arrogance.
There we go. So
talking is also like everything was created with talking. So
speech is creative.
Yeah, and it's like it's very important. It could lead to destruction or.
That's very good. Okay, I like this. This is very good. So let's read it then. Mishirabu. Let's read it again. Then it's translated in this manner. Mishirabu moishcheroik. When those who extend their spittle have proliferated, people just talk a lot and like to make people think they know everything. So Rabu Hayirdim, arrogance proliferated because everybody wants to be the know-it-all. Now, if that's the case, you have no more students anymore because everybody's a know-it-all. And Torah has to look for people to learn it because no one's looking at Torah to find information. They know everything themselves already. They're the source of wisdom. Very, very good. Which leads to the next statement, which could be read as a separate one, but it could be a continuation. And it says, when arrogance proliferated, so is this a new statement when arrogance proliferates? Or is this a continuation? Those arrogant people who think they're know-it-alls, when they proliferated, the daughters of Israel begin to marry to arrogant people. Well, first of all, because they're the only ones available. But more than that, because they say our generation nowadays does not see el upon him. They only see the exterior. They only see the face. They're arrogant people who want everybody to believe they're a know-it-all. So now their wives become like handbags that they get to show off to the world and say, look who I married.
It's a facade.
It's all facade. So all they see is the facade. That's correct. So that's what women end up looking for arrogance. Those are looking for status, and status is based on who's the know-it-all, then that's what they're looking for. And conversely, what the men are looking for are the kinds of women that they can show off as their status, and not looking for a meaningful relationship. It's very interesting because in that both Torah learning and marriage are healthy when there's humility. If you're the know-it-all, you're not gonna have a good time learning, and you're not gonna have a good time being married. If you're a know-it-all, and if you're that kind of arrogance, right?
But this brings me also to, that's why I said before with the
Moshe Arok, yeah.
That's why I said I think it's because it says when like Mishrabu Moshtachot, Rabu Hayerim.
Yirim is like arrogance. People who are arrogant.
So it started with
yeah.
So I think it's the leaders, because the leaders talk a lot, and when they started talking nonsense, then maybe the arrogance.
Oh, interesting.
We spoke about this a couple of classes ago. Right? That it trickles down.
Yeah. So you could think of this from.
It starts from the top.
So you could start from the leaders and then go down to the society. You could say on a personal level, people who themselves are know-it-alls, arrogant, not become students, and have marriages that are just all facade. Or you can talk about it on a leadership level. When the leadership just starts talking because they want to be.
Well, then, because you follow them, what do you?
And then everybody starts to follow them.
And everybody starts following them, and then
I think all this.
Yeah.
I think all the. Yeah, I agree. I think all the statements you're reading can be understood on like a leadership level down to the bottom, or on an individual level.
Or one leading to the other.
Yeah. Well, yeah, interlinked.
Or interdependent, or independent also.
Independent and interdependent, meaning independently leadership can destroy everything. Independently, individuals can destroy their own lives, and collectively, this can be interdependent, where leadership destroys individual lives.
Erodes the societal.
That's right. Yeah. Very good. Now here it comes to Gemoro. It makes a beautiful comment. The Gemoro says, "Aini, is this the case where the women start falling for this arrogance and start falling for this facade? Is that the case? Va'amar mar, did master not say? Was it not taught by a great teacher? Hai man de miyahir, this person who behaves arrogantly, afilu a'inish basic, even the people of his own household, lein makabler, won't accept it. The guy who walks around and is all self-assured and arrogant, even his family is going to reject him. Even the people closest to him are going to reject him.
Unless everybody's like you.
Yeah, well, let's see. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Gever Yahir, an arrogant person, and the translation is V'lo Yineveh, and not for those in his surrounding. So let's pick up the actual pasuk. It's in Habakkuk. Where is it? Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 5. The verse reads like this. I'm reading the English. And surely he whom wine betrays, a haughty man whose dwelling shall not remain, who widened his desire like the nether world, and he is like death and shall never be sated. And he gathered all the nations to himself and collected to himself all peoples. Sounds like describing an addict. So the words he's highlighting is this. A haughty man whose dwelling shall not remain. Gever Yahir, haughty man. V'lo Yinveh, whose dwelling shall not remain.
Does it say it twice for you, or just for us?
Oh, yeah, no, it says twice.
Oh, okay.
So that's the literal translation. His dwelling doesn't remain because of his arrogance.
Okay.
So the Gemara translate says, Lo Yineveh, his dwelling doesn't remain, meaning afilu b'nevei, even of his own household, he's rejected. Even amongst his own household.
That would be in a healthy environment.
1 second. Well, in a healthy environment, certainly. But the point that this teacher is saying, which is why it seems like a contradiction, is that this teacher is saying, the earlier teaching seemed like men started behaving arrogantly, so women went along with the arrogance, and they're all living in this facade life. And this other statement is saying, you can go down that route, but your family's not going to buy it. They're going to see right through it. To which the Gemara answers to reconcile. This is beautiful. Mikara kafsala. To begin with, they jump on you.
Yeah.
Oh wow, check out this
When they
awesome
tell
guy.
you.
He's so awesome. But Lasif at the end, mitzalalayu. They become disgusted by you.
Become disgusted.
Yeah. That's what Rashi translates the word mitzel. Nimas beineim. They become disgusted. So initially, your family's like, oh wow, look, this guy's so cool. He knows everything. He's so popular. And then they get married, and they start living together. And then, after a certain time, she starts to see through it, and not she's indifferent. She becomes disgusted by it. That's quite the commentary.
So you can broaden this to you can make a macrocosm of this. The community at first loves this whole idea.
But the closer they get to you,
but then they start to hate each other.
But it's more than that. It's the closer they get to each other, the more they see through it. This arrogance only works people you meet once or twice.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, wow, that guy, I met him at a party. He said so much.
Right.
But then you start to get closer to the person. You're like, ugh.
Well, with the wife and husband, like here, you can also relate it to like the difference between lust and like an actual love.
Exactly
There's
right.
lust at the beginning, yeah, sure.
It's exciting.
It's
It's this. Look at that. He's so cool. He's so strong. He's so this.
But then they become disgusted with each other. Nothing's real.
That's right.
It's all.
That's right. So if we're going to keep these statements, not as two different statements, but actually one big statement, then we go something like this. The Moshe Heroic, let's go with your translation, which I like. The other guy talks a lot because he's a know-it-all. Arrogance proliferates. No one's a student anymore. No one's seeking out Torah to learn because I'm a know-it-all. Now, at the beginning, women are jumping all over this guy because look how cool he is.
Right.
But as these people get closer to them, especially their family, slowly start to reject them because they're just empty shells or full of themselves.
What's interesting is it mentions that they stopped studying Torah.
Yeah.
Because if they did study Torah, they wouldn't fall for it. They only fall for it because they didn't.
Number one, they would stop falling. I mean, the people on the other end would stop falling for it, but they themselves would be a little bit. They would have to swallow a humility pill.
Right.
If they want to learn Torah properly, they have to study humility, swallow a humility
But
pill.
even let's say the wives and the people who like follow him,
right, both
because they didn't study. That
both.
They follow.
That's right. If they study Torah,
you could see right through it. You
both ways.
Wait, and you wouldn't get fooled.
That's right, both ways. If you study Torah, you wouldn't fall for these know-it-alls, and if you study Torah, you would be a little less of a know-it-all. Be a little less of a know-it-all. Which, since it's just after Purim, it links back. We're still in other. It links back to the message of Purim. Right, the message of Purim, as we know, is that the person has to drink to the point that he doesn't know the difference between cursed as Haman and blessed as Mordechai. What kind of value, what kind of virtue is that? There's a virtue in thinking Mordechai is cursed. What, God forbid, what is this supposed to mean? So explains Chassidus. It's not that the person thinks, God forbid, that Mordechai is cursed and Haman is blessed, God forbid. But he comes to a state where he understands the reason why Mordechai is blessed and the reason why Haman is cursed is not because I know it. It's lo yada, not because I know it, but because God decided this is the right thing. So it's not I figured out that Haman is cursed, and Mordechai is blessed. I figured out, lo yada, I don't know. But it still remains that Mordechai is blessed and Haman is cursed. But not because I figured it out. It's a little humility.
I've heard a lot of like interpretations about that also. Like how because everything happens for a reason, obviously, and then even Haman, whatever he did is to get, the Yeshua, because we got after Purim Torah B'al Peh.
That's right.
With love.
But the whole Purim is consistent with everything is beyond cheshbon. Haman does a goyrel, just throws lots. What's the point of a lot? What do you cast the lottery? Yeah. It's arbitrary. Just cast a lot, right? We have tzedakah on Purim. Whoever puts their hand out, take, no cheshbon. We drink, no cheshbon, no limit. When it comes to Yom Tif, the halacha writes that this Bezdin would send down messengers back in temple times, when during Sukkot, during Pesach, Bezdin would send out their police enforcers to make sure that people aren't getting out of hand with their drinking. But on Purim, no such thing. Adonai Yadas. The whole thing is to get to a place where it's not I figured out, but the humility to say this is Hashem's will. It's beyond me. Right? Which is what Haman was trying to say. Haman, by throwing lots, is trying to say For you, Hashem makes no difference, Jew or not Jew. What's the difference? It's all a lottery anyway. To which Hashem says, you're right, but I choose the Jew. Not because of any calculation, but because I decided. It's Haman is cursed and Mordechai is blessed, not because of Yoda, not because we figured it out, but because of Lo Yoda. But it's beyond what we figured out. So I'm linking it back to this idea where studying Torah properly must induce, and in many ways must be preceded by a humility. And the same thing's true of marriage. The Torah study can start out with arrogance, but it'll fall apart if it stays arrogant. And the same thing with marriage. The marriage can start off arrogant. Oh my gosh, look how cool he is. But it won't take long, and she'll start to being disgusted by you. Because it's a selfish, empty shell. It's quite powerful. Okay, now comes another statement. We'll do one more like this. And again, this is very similar to what we said earlier about like the current state of political affairs. This is it's uncanny how anyway. So let's see. Misharabu matile milei al balabata. This is the way Rashi explains it like this. When there proliferated those who give their businesses, who give their assets to businessmen to run for them. We're speaking specifically, Rashi explains, for judges. Judges, remember, judges in Torah are not just adjudicate the law, they also create law, right? So it's the judiciary and the judicial. And the what's the word? And the legislative. So when they start giving their business, when they start having their financial interests tied up with the local wealthy people, so there's no official bribery, I'm just investing in his business. But that leads Rabba HaShoichad. Very quickly, bribery starts to proliferate. And then very quickly, Hatayas Mishpat, judgments start to get skewed. Uposka Hatayva, and good ends. Isn't that amazing?
Everything changes and nothing changes.
Exactly. Like you think, oh, this is only going on nowadays. This has been going on since the Gemara's time. The Gemara's already commenting on this. And this is the Gemara's talking about Jews here. The Gemara's talking about Jewish people, Jewish judges who have their business investments tied up with local balabatim.
The premise is good. You have the Torah law, the Constitution, the premise, everything.
That's it.
It's very ideal.
That's right.
Straight, but they find ways to.
That's right.
To corrupt it.
That's correct. So
Corrupt the system.
what's the big deal? I'm just investing in a local guy.
Right.
Is there a problem with that? But then all of a sudden,
the human aspect
kicks in, and they start bribery, and
that's why they say like לעשות לך גדר, because
the what?
לעשות גדר.
Yeah, that's right.
Because as soon as you step, if you don't have a fence, then a little here, a little this, a little,
Exactly.
And then you start doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We learned
where the limit is.
Yeah, we once
human.
Earlier, maybe when was in Sanhedrin when we learned about a whole bunch of stories about those who were very careful not to take bribery and everything that didn't look like bribery. We remember we had a bunch of stories like that, and one of the main messages there was that when it comes to bribery, you don't even know that you're being biased. Meaning, in theory, it's possible you're coming to the correct judgment anyway.
It's very subtle. Right?
It's so subtle that that's right. You can't even see in your own self how you're being biased towards something. That's why conflict of interest is so important, because conflict of interest is not outright bribery.
No.
But if you have a conflict,
but it's a bias.
It's a bias nonetheless.
That's correct. Potential bias.
And you can't.
A bias for the other side.
That's right.
You're trying so hard not to be biased that you affect
exactly
the other side. That's
correct. It's exactly right. Exactly. So whenever there's a conflict of interest, you often hear conflict of interest. Yeah, but I voted the other way. Maybe that's why you voted the other way, because you're trying to overcompensate for your conflict of interest.
No.
Either way, it's not clear. That's correct. You have to keep, as the saying goes nowadays, keep money out of politics, right? That's the new thing nowadays. That's the Gemara saying here, that those who are in positions of judging and leadership should not be investing their money in the local populace that they are supposed to be judging. Because if they start investing in that, then inevitably they have conflict of interest in every other case that they're involved in. And then bribery comes and no judgments are clear and the good is all corrupted. Posca tova, goodness collapses.
I think what's really critical here is the subtleness of it. It's like the Torah is warning you. It's so subtle that maybe initially you didn't have intent to be corrupt.
I'm investing in a business. What's the problem?
Right. But slowly,
That's
it
right.
builds where you don't even, you're so blinded by it, you don't even see it anymore.
That's right. That's right. So B'ezras Hashem, tomorrow, more such farbrengens. There's still a few more where the Gemara is going to do a few more comments like this, where people where one thing lead to the next, and how these things lead to societal and personal breakdowns. It's quite remarkable.
Everything in the Torah has that, like that, I guess that fence to not even like start because it's
That's right.
Know?
Yeah.
Even like Shabbat or whatever. No one said we can't watch TV or it just don't work or don't light fire.
Yeah.
But
Nobody's. That's right. It goes. Yeah, but it goes in the positive and the negative. Nobody starts off being a thief, stealing from a bank. You start off with stealing $10 and be like, okay, no, exactly. What's the big deal?
Borrowed and you didn't return.
Borrowed, didn't return, and then you get comfortable, and no one caught me. You get more self-assured, and then fast forward a couple of years, and the guys are robbing banks.
A Ponzi scheme and you robbed your whole community.
That's right. And the same thing happens, and it starts off sometimes innocently. We're like, I do it this 2 times just to keep my business afloat, and then the next time I'll be able to clear it, and I'll be able to be legit. But then you saw how easy it was to do that little scheme, and you get stuck. And the same thing is true in the positive. Nobody starts out giving $1 million to charity, even when they have $100 million. You know how it starts? You give 18 when you have 180. If you give $18 and you have 180, then maybe when you have 100 million, you'll give 10 million. It doesn't start out, like people, when I get my tons of money, then I'm going to give charity. It doesn't work that way. In the same way it doesn't work in corruption. It doesn't start off at the end where everything's bad. It starts off subtly. Same thing's true in the positive. It starts off with small acts of the positive point. It starts off with small acts of incrementally doing positive activity. And then as you grow, so does the good activity grow. It doesn't start off with doing heroic acts on a massive scale.
That's correct. Anything you do like quickly and extremely doesn't last.
That's right.
So if you
build
it up,
that's right.
You've earned it, even that right to do a mitzvah. But if you wake up one day, you win the lottery, you get 10 million.
Not going to happen.
You lose your head also.
Not going to happen. It starts off incrementally, small, subtle, good behavior, and then it grows exponentially. In both the negative and the positive. That's correct. Okay, wonderful day, Yidin. Shkoyach. This is beautiful.
I like the break from all of the exegesis